All right, let's talk about one of the most important, but honestly, most misunderstood ideas in all of finance: effective portfolio diversification. We're going to go way beyond the old cliches and give you a real, structured way to think about building an investment strategy that can actually weather the storms.
You've heard this a million times, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Well, it turns out that this super simple idea is the bedrock of modern portfolio theory. It's the core principle that helps protect investors from taking on risks they don't need to. And it's what sets the stage for steady, long-term growth.
So, what is this golden rule all about, really? Well, at its heart, diversification just means you're intentionally spreading your money across different kinds of assets, stocks, bonds, real estate, maybe some commodities. But, and this is the key part, the goal isn't just to own a bunch of different things. The real strategy is to build a portfolio where all the different pieces react differently when the same big economic events happen. And these benefits all kind of feed into each other. See, by cutting down on your risk, you're not making it impossible to lose money, let's be real, but you are smoothing out the crazy ups and downs of your returns. That balance is everything. When one part of your portfolio is having a bad month, another part can pick up the slack, and that leads to much more consistent results over time. Okay, so what's the secret sauce here? How does this actually work? Well, it's not magic, it's math. The whole engine that drives diversification, the thing that makes it all tick, comes down to one single, powerful statistical idea: correlation. And you have got to understand correlation. It's just a number, from -1 to +1, that tells you how two different assets move in relation to each other. Think about, say, a hot tech stock and a boring old government bond. Do their prices move up and down together? Or do they kind of do their own thing? The answer to that question is literally the secret to smart diversification. So let's look at the extremes. Imagine you have two assets with a correlation of +1. That's a perfect positive correlation. It means when one goes up, the other goes up. When one goes down, the other follows right behind it. That's not diversification. That's just doubling down on the same bet. You're just amplifying your risk. Now let's look at the other end of the scale, a perfect negative correlation of -1. This, my friends, is the holy grail. It's the theoretical dream for diversification. When one asset goes up in value, the other one goes down. They perfectly cancel each other's movements out, which creates this amazing natural stability in your portfolio. It dramatically reduces that gut-wrenching volatility. But here's the catch. In the real world, finding that perfect negative correlation is, well, it's basically impossible. It's super rare. So that brings us to the big strategic question, right? If perfect doesn't exist, what should we as investors actually be aiming for? What's the sweet spot? And the answer is pretty straightforward. The goal is to find and combine assets that have low or even better negative correlations. Look, while a negative correlation is the most powerful diversifier, even getting a correlation close to zero is a huge win. That means the two assets are pretty much moving independently. One doesn't care what the other is doing. And that is the key to slashing your overall portfolio risk. Okay, theory's great, but let's turn this into a real strategy. And to do that, we can borrow a tool from the world of top-tier consulting. It's a framework called MEIS. It stands for Mutually Exclusive, Collectively Exhaustive. All that really means is we can break down every possible diversification strategy into two and only two distinct categories.
So what are these two paths? Well, on one side, you have what's called naive diversification. This is the common sense approach. You're just spreading your money across a whole bunch of different assets, hoping the law of large numbers will work in your favor. On the other side, you have optimal diversification. This is the data nerd approach. It uses heavy-duty statistical models and computers to build the perfect portfolio, specifically targeting those assets with low or negative correlations to get the lowest possible risk.
But here's something you really need to hear, and it comes right from the research. Don't let the name fool you. We should absolutely not dismiss the naive approach. Sure, it might not have all the fancy math, but a smart, common sense strategy of just spreading your investments out is a proven, powerful, and incredibly effective way to reduce your risk. For a lot of people, it's the perfect solution. And that brings us right to our final takeaway. We've looked at two very different ways to get this done, one based on common sense and breadth, the other on pure math. So no matter which path you lean towards, what are the absolute core principles that should guide you?
Let's just boil it down to the essentials. First, diversification is not a nice to have, it's your number one defense against the market's craziness. Second, correlation is the number you have to care about. Always be hunting for assets that have low or negative correlations. Third, remember that a simple, smart strategy is often way better than a complex one you don't understand. And finally, don't be impressed by complexity. Judge a strategy by its results, period. So I'm going to leave you with one final and I think pretty critical question. There is this term in finance, diversification. It's when you keep adding things to your portfolio, thinking you're diversifying, but you're actually just adding complexity and costs without getting any real benefit. So take a hard look at your own investments. Is your portfolio truly diversified, or have you accidentally diversified it into a messy collection of assets that are all doing the same thing? The answer to that could make all the difference to your financial future.